Roller coasters. They're that thing that makes you go, ah! And whoa! And wee! Wow! But what about before that? Have you ever been to an amusement park and been like, or like, I grew up going to Universal Studios until I realized that I was Disney gang all along. But now that I'm too old to be the target market for 90% of these rides, I can really appreciate what the Imagineers were cooking up when they put these together. That doesn't mean I like baby rides though. I'm not a baby. There's just something that hits you right in the face when you go on the E.T. ride for the first time and you smell that chlorine wilderness smell that Steven's pumping out of the E.T. spring trap. So what happens when the wait for the ride is better than the actual ride? Isn't there a saying that's like something journeys better than the destination, whatever? So just for today, let's get rid of the Genie Plus, let's get rid of the Flash Pass, let's get rid of the Fast Pass, and let's dive into the wacky, wild world of waiting for roller coasters in 90-degree weather. And while you're here, it looks like 100% of you watching aren't subscribed, so why don't you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon, and let's just jump into it. So picture this. You're on your family vacation at Universal Studios. Your dad spent all year working at the factory, building factory things. And you make it to the promised land, Orlando. You get to the park with your little wizard robe and your Drunk One t-shirt and your Ratatouille ears. And what are you met with? A 5-hour wait for the Hogwarts ride, 8-hour wait for the Simpsons ride, 12-hour wait for the Minions ride. You make the fatal mistake of going to your dad and saying, "Dad, can we please go on the Jimmy Fallon ride? I really want to see #the panda and tight pants guy. Those are my favorite. I really want to smack the desk with Jimmy." But here's the thing. The ride sucks. It's awful. Awful, awful. But the queue, it is Q Central over there. They took 30 Rock from the show and they put it in Orlando. There's just so much to love here. I feel like when Universal opened, there was so much emphasis on it being a movie theme park. And then when I went to the LA Universal, I just fell in love with the studio tour. It's just such a unique break from the Chris Pratt ride and the Banana. And you just don't get that in a place like Disney. So even though it's weird to have a Jimmy Fallon ride at Universal Studios, I really think it's cool to have something like this in a theme park. There's all sorts of props and little history tidbits while you're standing around waiting. And then when you go into the actual room, you get to meet #the panda. And they got Questlove in the house. The Roots have always been the best part of Jimmy Fallon's show, and I really love that Black Thought wraps the safety procedures before you get on the ride. Before every ride had to top every ride, and you had to invert 7,000 degrees, and you had to have 12 loops, and you had to have one of these things. There used to be these really cool walkthrough attractions, and I feel like as a walkthrough, the Jimmy Fallon ride is really cool. I think that this is the start of the problem, though, when the queue eclipses the ride. My favorite queue of all time. It's the Roger Rabbit ride at Disneyland. It's just so unique. I know that they're tearing down the old Toontown right now, and hopefully this ride stays, but it's just so different from everything else at Disney. You can go to Mickey and Minnie's little houses, and you can go to Donald Duck's boat, and then you go on the Roger Rabbit ride, and you're in the dark, sleazy back alleys of Toontown, and you can see Jessica Rabbit's changing room, and you can look at these scary animatronics when you knock on doors. They just exaggerate the shape so well. But then you go on the ride, and it's just... It's fine. It's just another thing that makes me such a big fan of Mr. Toad. It's a ride that takes that Disney formula and just flips it on its head. Imagine a ride where you drive through London, you get drunk, you get a DUI, you die, and then you go to hell, and then the ride's over. This is a real thing that exists. It takes a ride like Alice in Wonderland, and it breaks your neck, and it crashes you into trains, and it blows you up. So why, when you go on the Roger Rabbit ride, a ride that's 41 years older than Mr. Toad, does it look like this? To me, I feel like the queue and the ride have to work hand in hand. Dudley Do-Right in Islands of Adventure has a great queue. There's all these parody movie posters on the wall with the characters on it, and it introduces you to the fact that even though this is Universal's Splash Mountain, they like to get silly. Wacky even. They're these animal head animatronics that are mounted to the wall, and they raise their little eyebrows up and they talk to you, and you're in this hallway for 10 years. But then you get out and you're in this old movie theater opera house, and you're like, what or whatever. I just love the animatronics. I love how shiny they are. I love how goofy they look. They really look like they popped out of a comic book strip. It's an old ride, but because of how cartoony it is, it kind of looks timeless. And even though it's a long queue, it seamlessly brings you into the world of the ride and complements it so well. But what happens when the queue sucks? Nobody likes waiting. A good queue isn't going to make waiting better. The best thing a queue can do is lightly entertain you before you inevitably get cranky, but if a ride breaks down, I'd much rather be in the Roger Rabbit line than the Rise of the Resistance line. Rise of the Resistance. It's my favorite ride ever. It combines everything I love about theme parks into 6 minutes. It has a killer pre-show, another killer pre-show. It has all these surprises in it. It has awesome animatronics that you can get super close to. It has photo ops. But in order to experience any of that, you either have to pay $17 for a fast pass or you have to wait upwards of 5 hours in one of the worst queues I've ever seen. I've waited 2 hours in this queue before. You used to be able to make these free reservations at 5 in the morning. I used to drive 45 minutes at 4 in the morning to get to Disney to make the reservations. And then you would show up and you'd have to wait for 30 minutes and then you get to experience the ride. But one time the ride shut down for an hour and a half and I had to plop my ass on this. For a ride that really makes you feel like you're in a Star Wars movie, like more than anything in the entire franchise, I really don't remember the part where Rey and Chewie are just hanging out in this really, really long cave for like 5 hours. Part of me feels like having a queue this bad builds up the anticipation for the ride. When Rise of the Resistance was being built, nobody really knew what it was, and I've ridden it 7 times, and it's kind of hard to explain it to people that haven't been. It makes me think of a queue like Flight of Passage, a ride that has just as long of a wait, but has way more to be distracted by and way more to see. Part of the problem these worlds that parks like Disney and Universal builds are the lack of attractions. And in a world that only has 2 attractions like Animal Kingdom's Pandora, and one of them is this boat ride that I'm not even going to get into, a good queue can make all the difference. The atmosphere, the smells, the way they make me give a shit about Avatar. It's all remarkable. Translating that into a solid queue with this really cool animatronic you can get really close to makes all the difference. While Galaxy's Edge has more shops and experiences than Pandora, the hallmark is still Rise. And it's pretty ridiculous that most of the time people are spending in the land are in these awful caves. But what happens if you just miss it altogether? I went to Disney World last week with my girlfriend and it was amazing. I got to ride some of my favorite rides ever and experience some of the best lines theme parks have to offer. But I'm not a sucker. I'm not gonna spend 3 hours waiting for Remy's Ratatouille adventure. But if I use my Genie Plus reservation, am I going to miss the tiny apartment that shows you how to get in the little rat car? And not that this queue is the best thing in the world, but I just love the detail. I love that instead of walking through a plain hallway, you're walking through the walls and you can see these little stains and you can hear Emil talking through the vents and you can see people's silhouettes through their windows and everything's so damn big and you're so damn small and you're just a little rat and I'm gonna step on you. I'm gonna step on you. I'm really gonna do it. I'm really gonna do it this time. I'm gonna step on you. Or how if you use the Fast Pass in Universal on the Spider-Man ride, you miss the whole Daily Bugle where you get to see all of these little Easter eggs and you get to go into the dark room and you get to watch this silly cartoon they made for the ride. But with how much Disney's pushing their Genie Plus program, the state of some of these queues seem like a sign of what's to come. It's kind of impossible to experience the whole park without ponying up $17 for Genie Plus and $17 for the good rides. I loved going on Expedition Everest because I convinced my girlfriend to go on with me, but also how you get to walk through this fake Yeti museum, and there's all these fake magazines and artifacts and Yeti shit, and you miss all of it if you do the Fast Pass. There's only so much world building you can do in a 3-minute ride, but these little Easter eggs help bring overstimulated guests into their world. So next time you're waiting in line, take a look around. We're all so plugged in these days. Everybody's looking down there when they should be looking up here. That's the end of the video.